Thursday, October 21st, 2021.
Say when.
When?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, today's
morning.
general fund forecast.
Thank you.
So I'll pass out what I've put together.
Would anybody in the audience like copies?
I've got copies available.
Okay. Anybody? Thanks.
Thanks.
But before I talk about the general fund forecast, I just wanted to paint the picture of some other
that
things
black
that we've
pen.
talked about before, prior meetings and with environmental services. And I apologize, they couldn't be at this meeting today because they have some other commitments. But I just wanted to sort of set the backdrop about what I'm gonna talk about, and it'll tie in later. But just to remind the board with the amount of capital projects that are required and are gonna be necessary in both water lines and sewer pipes and sewer lines, we have a significant amount of capital improvements coming down the line in both water and sewer. It's always been a question of how are we gonna fund that? You know, we've got the Sawmill wastewater treatment plant diversion that's, you know, we have to do per EPA. That's gonna be at least a $15 million project. When we met with Pogemeyer the other day, based on sort of the hyperinflation that they're seeing with materials, that 15 million could be 22 million. I mean, things are just absolutely crazy right now. So some of the numbers that Environmental Services has presented to us earlier in the year are probably really conservative and are probably actually higher than that. I mean, I think in water projects alone, we probably have at least 20 to 25 million dollars worth of investments and improvements that we need to do. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we start the forecast, and this will all tie in as I get to the end. And obviously just jump in anytime you have questions as I'm working through this. So we've got the same format that we've used in the past. Really the first page I want to talk about, page 2, where it kind of has a analysis of how we've done in the past, comparing how 2020 ended up compared to where we forecasted back 2017, 18, and 19.
So those numbers are according to when that forecast was
Yeah,
made? So
exactly.
at that point in time, we thought it would be this?
Correct.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, so as you see, our revenues and expenses, we're within about 5%, not too bad on that.
All right, so go slower for me.
Yeah,
So repeat that again. The variance is,
so what this page summarizes here is.
you're on page, okay.
Yeah, so that
Yep.
page right there. So
Gotcha.
back when we did the 2017 forecast, that shows what number we were using for 2020 back in 2017. So what this shows is it compares what we projected in 2017 to how it actually happened, how far off we
So
were.
say the number out loud for me.
You know, so in 2017, we had forecasted about $31,332,203 would be our revenue for 2020. And the actual was, you know, 31.
It's kind of
some
scary
change.
how close the.
Then on expenses, we had forecasted 31.5. 2020 ended up being a little bit lower, about 30.3, but again, you're within 5% variance back. And that's keeping everything in mind with COVID. I mean, when we did the numbers in 2017, I mean, nobody knew this was coming.
Were you here in 2017?
I was not.
So that's Mr. Daniels,
Correct.
the great guru
Correct.
of forecasting.
I mean, that's pretty scary.
Pretty darn good, and I did consult with Mr. Daniel in preparation of this, just so you guys know, we had met several times, because obviously this is such an important piece of the puzzle, and me being the new guy, I wanted to make sure I learned from the best, so he definitely provided some input and feedback, which I'm very thankful for on this.
So the expenses in 2020, tell us about 28,679,772. What does that mean?
So that means at the time when we were doing the
Just 3
last
months
year's-
ago.
Yeah, when we did the forecast, when you know,
The
finance
COVID.
was here a year ago.
We were doing the COVID, we were in the middle of it, so that it was
Yep.
instant like, yikes, we're gonna say,
So was that just 3 months ago, you're saying?
No, a year ago when we did this,
2020?
Yes.
But why does it say 3 months? At the top, 2023 months. Front page.
Yeah, I see why it says 3 months. Get to my copy real quick.
3 months in, or is that,
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the 3 months, but it's definitely from when we did the projection back last October, October 7th, when we were here.
That should say 12 months.
Yeah, I don't know why it says 3 months. It always says three. I
that
wonder
the-
if it was because you were 3 months off from actual 2020 when we did this, when we were in October of last year.
I don't know.
3 months off, but it's definitely.
didn't we
from-
readjust everything though in March? Before because
We froze everything.
we adjusted in March before we formally did the year-long budget. And I bet that, maybe that's referencing 3 months in to 20.
Yeah, I mean, that was my original.
Well, that doesn't make
prediction,
any
but-
sense, because that wouldn't be
Yeah.
15 months in for
Yeah.
2019, or it wouldn't be 27 months in for 2018.
I just skipped looking at the months and.
Yeah, I could get a better explanation for the
I don't
months,
know.
I
but
just want to know.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't figure it out, so I just looked at the years, but.
that's why I made some notes on where these numbers came from, because going through it myself, some of the
So at what
terminology
point
was-
in 2020 did we guess 28,679,000? At what juncture?
October.
That- October?
October, yep.
So that's October now, so that's 12 months ago.
Yes, it is.
We guessed 28,679,000, and we actually spent $700,000 too much.
And primarily, I mean, the difference between both what we were projecting at the time and what was actual,
Yeah.
the two items it came down to was transfers that we made for our capital projects, so the capital project fund, and putting money in the compensated absences fund. That's really the only, you take those two into account,
We'd be good.
you're at the 28.6.
Okay.
So that's.
Yeah.
All righty.
And that's, if you flip to the next two pages, that's, like, I only circled a couple things here, so this would be the sheet that has a summary of your revenues and expenses. So this is a two-page document. The only thing I really circled for your reference on revenues, obviously with sales taxes, we've talked about all year. I mean, we were up 600,000 in actual compared to what we thought when COVID started, because we really didn't anticipate the kind of sales volume that we ended up having last year with all the, stimulus dollars that were given by the federal government, all the different unemployment compensation benefits that were out there, and just, we didn't know that back a year ago.
But that number, the sales tax number, these are referencing our projections to actuals
Correct,
compared to the year before, 5-6% down.
yeah.
For overall for the
But
year.
the big thing is investment income, the transfers on real estate tax.
Yeah, that's the other thing I circled, is under
That's a-
statutory fees, you had such a,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, that's, and then you'll see that reflected in our forecast. I mean, that's kind of come down eventually, so we're kind of we're riding that crest of the wave right now.
Wasn't there a big thing? What is it I'm remembering? There was something got sold for like 20 or 30 million or more. What the heck was that? I remember reading about it in the paper, or in the real estate transfers. Something huge.
Sawmill?
No,
Sawmill
no, no.
transaction?
No. Well, we had sawmill, but no, it was a factory of some sort.
Last year? in 20?
Yeah, this year. Or, no, I can't remember.
Was
So
it,
it
was
last
it
year or
Gary?
this year?
Is it the
Or
hard
Aaron?
dog?
No, because that was only 11 million, or 15 million. Was it Ventra sold? It's something big. Big. So that, I mean, that might have skewed this number, because you could have a transfer of a $12 million thing, and it could be, that's a big advance fee.
Yeah, but I guess the point here was to show, those are two items we just didn't anticipate, and that's why
Yeah.
it came in more than what we thought. That's-
And we have to be careful when we do our projection for next year, that we don't include that in.
I think we still have a little bit of that early for 2022, but then it falling
Falls off.
later, because it's still, we checked with, Rick and Barb, the recorder and
still
the
buying.
auditor, and things are still hot.
But I don't, I think if you call somebody, I don't know who you'd call, somebody down at the auditor's office,
Sure.
there was something huge.
I could find out.
20, 30 million.
Sure. I'll make a note. Do you remember roughly when?
No.
No.
not at all.
Okay. I'll make a note.
And maybe it might have been a dream.
I won't mention that when I ask the question. Like I mentioned on the expenditures, if you flip to the second page of that, we were off 1.6, the 28.6 compared to the 30.3, but the two main factors were at year end. We made that transfer, 1.3 million to capital and technology capital funds, and then we also made 450 more in the compensated absences fund. So really, those were the two things that would throw off the numbers. Other than that, we were pretty much right on. And just to give you a reference, the compensated reserve fund, the balance of that, as of today, is about $796,000. So, any questions on that?
No, sir?
So the next page is just the assumptions that we use in the forecast. So it'll say general fund cash flow forecast at the top, where I'll briefly touch upon some of what I consider the important assumptions. So really, number one, we feel like this economic rebound from COVID is going to soften here late in 2021, obviously early in 2022, with contraction expected late in 22. As we heard from Eileen yesterday, who was also consulted when we prepared this, investment rates are going to be very low through 2022, and that'll obviously impact investment income. We have the triennial update next year, so that'll be definitely an impact. And then number 4, again, sales tax, which has just been really a wild card projecting. We're still thinking, again, we're going to drop to that pre-COVID levels, but probably not till late 2022 with possible recession in 2023. Thinking of the timing on that, it's really hard to tell, but it could be sooner, it could be later. That's kind of how we built.
What's the Nexus one? Tell me, what does that mean?
So that was when Nexus put their lines in.
How much you putting in for that?
So the number we had been using was 225,000.
225,000.
But we reduced it by, I think, about 90%.
What was the original?
It was like 350.
I thought it was
maybe more.
500.
It might have been closer.
It was big.
It was a big number, but we've
I
tried.
remember that was for all the county agencies, the Board of DD, because
Oh, that could be.
I thought it was $1 million something for everybody.
It was big. Well,
Back in the day.
I was thinking 800,000, but that was for the whole county.
What was our share of that?
It'd be small.
Yeah, for us. We're not.
So we're putting 225 in our pocket.
Well, that was what was in Rick's number, so we took a portion of that out just because of the appeal that's going on. We didn't want to rely on it because it was sort of unknown if that was really gonna pan out. So we've got it in there, but at a lower percentage throughout the next.
Have we received a check from Nexus?
No,
We've gotten $0 out of them.
that's what I've been told.
Is their appeal deal where they get to kind of pay what they want, what they think it is, and then the appeal's going
That's-
through? But then they
that's
have to
what I
keep
thought.
paying, I think, they have to keep paying that
Yeah.
number.
Yeah, I think I'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you must have got something. Couldn't have been zero, because they have to
They
pay
might be paying
something.
what they normally would pay.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a separate check to writing, but I think if they were supposed to pay what they, a baseline. I think
Does that go directly, well, I know it goes directly into the general fund, but are we setting that aside somewhere? Or we're just putting it into the,
Just putting it
because we
in.
really should not be putting that into the general fund, is it's a diminishing asset.
And I think what we've tried to do in the past is it shows up in the general fund, but we tried to account for it in the bottom by saying, for capital needs or capital purposes, we want to kick that out, so it's
I see what
not-
you're saying, though, so
not
just-
used for
Yeah.
other things in the general.
Right. Don't put it in the big kitty, put it,
Yeah, because those are like one-time revenues, and you don't want to.
I mean, even if we earmarked it for like cyber upgrades, something like this is what we're gonna use this money for, so it's very clear. Something to think about.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind if we put it aside for water pipes and sewer pipes.
Whatever,
Yeah, anything.
something.
pick the capital asset.
Say
We just,
capital, and then we could
Yeah.
decide.
we just don't want it
Correct.
working its way into the,
A revenue stream. Everybody goes, hey.
All right, then a couple things on the expenses. I think we talked about with the cost committee, health insurance, we're gonna hold rates flat for 2022, so no increases there. But we have factored about a 10% in the future years. Staffing, we're budgeting is to stay flat to reduce, kind of as we have in the past. We still have the cost of one murder trial, which is, I think, about $250,000 is included in the projections. We do have some capital allocations.
Is that accurate? Is there only gonna be one? I mean,
That's the number we
how
gotta
many-
revisit.
how many are in the pipeline? Because
I
by
don't
reading the
know.
paper, it seems like there's,
I think there's one, but I think that's coming up this year, technically, starting here in November.
so we better,
To your point, yeah, I want
Better
to
be thinking
follow up
about
to
that.
see if that maybe needs to be more. I think we had talked about that before as well.
because it, I mean, I don't know if the murder rate's going up, but it seems like it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
We'll revisit that
seem
for
like a lot
budget.
of
That is,
murders
that,
going
but
on.
that's going to trial as opposed to,
Now they're even
Settling
murdering
them out
at
before
the
they go to trial.
Turnpike rest stops.
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah, that's crazy.
bad.
It seems like completely random.
That's what they're
Yeah,
thinking.
Bad
like
from
he
what I
just
read.
went up and started stabbing people.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much what happened.
Better keep your windows up in your travels to all the courthouses.
Don't go to
Don't-
rest stops.
don't go to rest stops, yeah.
Cornfield.
Take a nap.
That's pretty scary.
Capital allocations are included, so I'm gonna touch upon that here in a minute. And obviously, we have the jail and courthouse HVAC projects that'll be occurring. We think it'll probably be a 2022 and 2023 projects, timeline on that. We are still including some funding for the compensated absences fund to make sure we keep that solvent. And then we also included replenishment of the rainy day fund for this year.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I've already turned a page here. So
Yeah, you jumped
when
in.
you went to $34 million in '21 in both expenditures and receipts, am I wrong in thinking you put that $4 million in there that you got from Uncle Joe?
So that's in a whole completely separate fund.
Yeah,
Uncle
but
Joe
why,
money.
so how did you get receipts in '21 projected at 33,379? And expenditures,
So primarily it's sales tax.
right, but you're not gonna spend $33 million. According to your own sheet here, you're gonna spend $30 million. Why does the graph show that it's being spent?
Graph should mimic this, this sheet.
But it doesn't.
And
That's why I say I think that 4 million must be in there.
I'm showing on the graph that,
No, the graph's at 31.
yeah, the graph has it.
Spike is in 20,
21.
need a ruler.
Looks like 21 to me, well, maybe 20, I don't know, 21 to 22, but for whatever reason, if you look at your sheet thingamabob here,
Yep, the long sheet.
your revenue is 33,709,
Yep.
which is what this is showing
Yep,
in '21.
yep.
But your expenditures, if you flip back to your other sheet, are $30 million.
I think you're on the wrong year for projection for 2021.
Well, it doesn't matter, it's still, it matches what this long sheet is.
Because I've got 33.6 on expenses projected for 21 on the long sheet.
On the long, on expenses, well, but if I go back to this sheet,
That's 2020. That's not 2021.
well, you
Stuff
mean,
up
you
front.
mean tell me we're gonna spend $3 million more in 1 year?
Well, that's what I'm getting
20
to.
to 21?
This is what I'm getting to.
Oh,
If you-
sorry.
That's okay. So if you get to the long sheet, because of the windfall, which I consider a one-time windfall, you get to the, this is what I call the long sheet. You get to the bottom portion of this.
Yes, sir.
I put $4.5 million in capital outlay needs.
In 21,
Correct.
that's what I just said. The 4 million. That's in 21.
But it's not related to any other revenue other than the
But is
extra
it in
money.
the projected 33,769?
Yes.
That's what I said.
Okay, maybe I'm confusing your question.
You're not, no.
Okay.
No, I think, so the 4 million is extraordinary, let's call it, in 21, which skews this graph and makes us look bad. I don't like to see this graph where it all of a sudden looks like expenses are matching revenues to the tune of $4 million when we're trying to make expenses stay level or go down, aren't we? And I look at this and I go, uh-oh, what'd they do here?
But I think, to Hank's point though, I mean, my thinking with this is, like he said, this is a one-time, we hit the lottery.
Well,
And
then don't show that as, the lottery should be shown in a, not here, like that.
I mean, we could change that graph, and we'd have to
Well, it
put
should.
a little addendum on it that says other, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's just
We
how.
can't
how-
reclassify sales
how-
tax.
Right.
Well, it's
you
not,
can't.
it's not sales tax. It's $4 million in Uncle Joe money, or $7 million
Well, you
in
can
Uncle Joe
call
money.
wherever it's from, but the sales tax is gonna be up,
It's only $600,000 in sales tax.
not for this year, not for '21.
It will be like 2 million above 19's.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's true.
It's gonna be massive, but I get what you're saying, but I think
But
to
you
the
don't want
point,
your expenditures to go too. See what I'm getting at?
Well, you're spending the one-time money.
right, that's my thinking of it, that this is such an anomaly.
But you don't want that on a graph, because 5 years from now, somebody's gonna go back and they're gonna look at this graph and they'll go, oh, look at these.
And all you're gonna have to do is go COVID.
Huh?
All you have to do is look at them and say it's COVID, and, oh, okay.
I don't agree with
It
that.
would just get difficult if you start excluding things from, because
Yeah.
the graph ties to this. So if we start excluding things on the graph, maybe we could footnote the graph and say. it
Well, then you
includes-
should footnote this.
Again, to be clear, the ARP money and the CARES money, that's not in here.
Right.
That's a separate fund. This has nothing to do with CARES.
Those are real numbers.
Those are in
Those are your
separate
$20
accounts.
billion worth of
Well, then
spending in
you,
Erie County. or
then
whatever
you
that
should
was.
put a note in here that says that you've also in 2020, put an asterisk at the bottom, in 2022 is 2021, $4.5 million allocated to capital projects.
Yeah.
And that's what, when you look at the big long for the last page, very last page of this whole report, you'll see that. And all you gotta do is just look along the capital outlay needs from
Yeah.
2010 to 2025, and the anomaly is the 4.5 million.
And
I mean,
that's,
and we skipped ahead, but if you go to the expenses narrative,
The expenses are in line.
you can just put that in there.
right.
You know, I mean, you
Yeah,
just add that to that. I mean, this is a packet, not a.
Correct, yeah, that's just. That kind of how I wanted to circle back to where I started, when I was talking about the different things with water and sewer that need to be done. And I feel like this is at least one way to help get some of that stuff done.
But, yeah, and I think that, clearly shows our commitment and our need, like you mentioned, we have to fix these things. And we clearly don't have enough money to fix them all now. I mean, nobody does to fix the need list. But by God, we gotta have a plan. We gotta put some money where we think it's gonna be needed, and we allocate this here as a priority, as opposed to just saying $4.5 million sitting in the hallway.
Well, I mean, the commission, the last, go back in your graph, the commissions of the past have spent all of their money on not maintaining
Yes.
the stuff they own.
Yes.
So
And that was-
somebody has to pay that bill at some point, and the
And that's
bill's
what I
not
was
up.
getting at. When you look at the capital outlay going back to 2010, there was 3 years it was zero. There was
Exactly.
only 2 years that it was right around $1 million, and that was from 2010 to 2017.
Yes.
2018, it was 1.6, but even for us, last year, because we didn't know what was going on, right, the last 2 years were very, very low.
we held on.
Because we held on to it, thinking we need operational money as opposed to capital. So here is
Time to
the
pay.
pivot, the
Yeah.
pivot.
This is one of those times too where I talked to my my department heads and directors and have instructed them, like, we gotta start looking ahead. And I need 5-year capital plans.
Yeah.
We need to prioritize things that need to be done, because that's, as a new guy coming in, that's something I could tell, yeah, we had some projects sort of out there, but I could never determine, well, how do we pick these projects?
Right.
Let's maybe figure out a way to prioritize, so we, the board can say, okay, here's the list, here's what we wanna get done, and just go do them. Like, we've got some money now to help, I think,
And
address this issue.
this point brings to the point that I hear from, or too often, is you guys are hoarding all this money. Like, yes, because we have very expensive projects.
Well, we're in a capital intensive
Yeah,
business.
just like you save up before you buy a car, or a
Absolutely.
big ticket thing. I mean, it's not like we're not hiding it in the tin cans in the backyard.
And I like the
mean,
fact too that we've got, when you look at your projections that you did, that long page all the way through, moving forward after this, we're still at 1.5.
Right, we
For
gotta-
that,
we gotta
moving
try to
forward.
maintain that.
Maybe that gets higher even, or even higher as we move forward.
You know, you just reminded me of something. When we raised the sales tax, what year was that?
They're- no.
2014 collection.
Why didn't it go up here on this?
I think that probably would have been excluded from the projections.
That was the extra half?
I don't
Or
think
the
so.
extra-
That does, oh, was that for for
Sunset.
capital, the sunset? Yeah, sunset stuff, I think footnoted on the assumptions, it says.
I mean,
it
there's a
excludes
whole
that.
school of economics that when you raise taxes, people buy less stuff. Like,
No, but,
Well, the capital outlay need directly might
But
not
where
have
is it on
resulted.
here?
If you go to this page at the top, there's a little bullet point.
but
that-
where is it on here, on the
It
actuals?
wouldn't be on there, they would have taken it out.
Oh, okay.
It says, based
That was a
assumptions,
one-time.
half
In that
percent
year,
That was a
we
one-time.
raised how much money? It was a boatload.
6-7 million.
significant.
And that all got spent on capital.
On stuff, yes.
Well, yeah, primarily.
It did, yeah, no, it did.
Yeah, I mean, but not all of it was wisely spent.
Was what?
Wisely spent.
Sure it was.
Sure, that's right.
I was here, so I did it. It was very wise.
Well, can you get the list of capital projects that we spent the sunset sales tax on?
You know, kind of on a related but unrelated note, I noticed when we get our sales tax reports, we still have a page that talks about that. How are we still collecting? on that?
$300,
We
somebody's
can't
overpaying.
figure out, we're still getting dribbles
that
of
happen?
that, we have no idea.
We
It's
still get
probably
like 50
people
bucks,
that are
100 bucks,
settling their
Because
accounts.
people are delinquent is what the state is saying, and they're catching up, or penalties that they've paid, they're still only paying penalty.
Well, that's crazy. If you think about those people are having to pay, how many people are not doing it now, the right way?
Yeah, we got like
They only
300,
figure
almost
me.
400 bucks.
You can think
still
of
coming in.
plenty of people who probably aren't
Paying.
doing that properly.
So that's what I got.
All right,
Thank you.
nice job.
Any questions from
Thanks.
the audience?
We'll see how you do in 5 years.
Yeah,
exactly.
right, that's gonna be the.
I just pray I don't have to go through another one of these where you're trying to figure out like.
Now you're hedging.
A
Pete, you
normal
never
year
hedge.
is this. I mean, this.
And, I will say
definitely
too,
not an
is
easy task.
as much as we arm wrestle with folks over budgets and things like that, the last year, as crazy as that was, and there were crazy times on all aspects of it, I think the county as a whole did a pretty good job of understanding what was happening and kind of going through it, so we didn't have a big, massive mess.
And I appreciate this being done in a timely manner. I mean, this is probably a record for it being done early, that I've been here, which allows us to start our budget process and get going, so.
Yeah, and I hope
I
to
do
have the budget,
appreciate.
I have the budget policies basically done, I'll have them next meeting.
Yeah.
For you guys to consider, and then, I've already talked to several other elected officials about just trying to get their budgets done sooner than later.
Yep.
People seem to be receptive to that, they understand I'm shorthanded and I'm wearing multiple hats, so they're being very respectful of that, and we're working through that, so. But we'll get it done.
Okay,
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Anybody, questions from the audience? John, Bill?
For
Good?
the record, I'm sort of disappointed John didn't want to come listen to this.
All right, he's
I
there.
tried to talk him into
Or is
it.
that him back there in the corner? Oh,
That's
sorry,
him in the
sorry,
corner.
John.
Couldn't see him behind
Didn't
the
see
lady
him
with the
back there.
hat.
Wake up.
Yeah, wake up, John. Ma'am, do you have any questions?
She's shaking now.
All right. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Mr. Shennigo?
Yes.
Mr. Old?
Yes.
Mr. Schaffner?
Yes.